Here we go. One more time here, folks. Okay. Set the timer and then we're ready to go. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to issue number 2 of Thursday Comics.
Woohoo!
I am your co-host Dennis Osbourne, accompanied by always with Wallace Ryan.
Woo woo woo! That's me over here.
Right. How's your night?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad
night.
at all. This is it was a fun day at the comic book shop, and then hanging out with yourself and Sam and the boys down there, and then come on back here for a bit of comic booking.
Right. You'll do your library video.
Oh no, I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah.
And upload that then. So.
Yeah.
And we'll launch this one on Thursday.
Yeah.
When it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. I kind of like launching it on the Thursday.
Yeah.
Now this, of course, it'll be about an hour or so until I get this up, but.
And there's no editing because we just.
Yeah.
Shoot the shit basically.
Yeah. This is exactly.
This little script and then we go from there. So we got nothing to really.
Yeah.
Edit or do anything with. So.
No. We like it raw.
Raw and uncut.
Raw.
So main topic for today was kind of a little dual one. It's you got comic outreach.
Yep.
And tied into building new comic readers and also new clientele if you own a comic shop.
Yeah.
Because you had some instances with that today with teaching classes with some students, stuff like that. So.
Yeah. This week, on Tuesday, I went to a local high school here, and I talked to the art class. So I got in touch with the art teacher and all that, and she set it up and all that. So I came in, and this was also free of charge too. This one was because myself and my buddy Paul Tucker, we've been trying to grow the local comic art scene from the artist point of view. So I mean that's why we do our comic jam, which is every month, almost 10 years now in February, and the Pure Comics Festival too. There are ways of growing it, but the jam itself was essential because when I returned from New York in 2010 or whatever, Paul and I got together, and because I'd done a jam way back in the early 2000s, but then I went away to New York, and when I came back, I found Paul had been doing these mini jams at the where was it he did them? At some place downtown. One of the cafes escapes me now. Anyway, but and we ended up talking together and decided to do it ourselves. And I touched base with Bev Barber at the Anna Templeton Center, and she was more than happy to set us up with everything we needed, and that was 10 years ago almost. But what it was too, when both of us were growing up, well, especially me. I mean, there were no art classes, no nothing when I was in school. So I mean, we really had to find out everything ourselves, where at least in recent generations they'd have art classes and stuff like that. So I mean, we really wanted to set out and basically be the help to the next generation that we would have liked to have had. I mean, we say many times when we're having the jam, geez, well, I would have loved to have this as a kid.
Yeah. And I noticed there's a lot of younger people that do the jam.
Oh,
and when I helped you out with the Pure Comics, people signing up for the classes, there was a lot of younger people. And I found a lot of people were signing up for digital drawing, which was unique. That was a surprisingly big number of people.
Yeah, I think that was one of the bigger classes.
That was one of the bigger ones, which was different. And a lot of people went to the traditional one, obviously.
Yeah.
But the Learning Digital Comics had a pretty big following, which was unique.
Yeah.
So now when you launch it in late June, July of next year, you can kind of include that again. You get a decent crowd again for that one and build on the other areas.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so this was the whole thing. We were, like I say, it was a whole thing of building a community. And after the last Pure Comics Jam, and we were talking about, how can we get more people showing up for this? Not only the festival, but the jam too. And that's when I came up with the idea of doing an outreach, going out to local high schools and talking with people there, and that's why I posted to my group and stuff like that, and hopefully get the word out to other creators that in your own hometown, wherever you are, you don't have to be in New York City or whatever, but if you're living in Ohio or whatever, go to your local school, because it's the couple of hours of talking to some young art students could be what helps grow this. I mean, if every artist out there is doing it, all the comic book people are doing it, will be exponentially growing our audience, right?
And there are probably still a lot of, especially in high school, junior high, a lot of closet artists.
Oh yeah.
That they draw, but they're so scared of critique.
Yeah.
That they don't want to show their friends or their family or someone because they'll get made fun of or get critiqued because their work is quote unquote no good.
Yeah.
Which, if you bring it to someone who has professional training and is an actual artist, they don't mind criticism from that because it's criticism to get better as opposed to being made fun of.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I look at someone's art, it's just like, okay, this is what you need to make your comics even better.
Right.
Not the, and which is even better than actually your parents, because your parents will always say, "Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice."
How much
right?
crap did your parents put on the fridge?
Yeah.
That you drew or whatever, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're proud of that."
Yeah, no matter how bad, how ugly,
awful, right?
Yeah.
So.
But it's like I say, it really was our mission to establish and start to really grow a local comic art scene here in Newfoundland, and I think it's a model that people in other cities, stuff like that, can copy. I know that Ty Templeton in Toronto, how's it going there, Ty? Shout out to you. He does his comic book boot camp.
Okay.
And stuff like that. I even reached out to him and asked about, in terms of building the community and widening the comics and all that, and he'd said that with the Avengers movie, I'm quoting him now, and the Everything movies, characters are pretty mainstream nowadays, and he says he'd like to focus on things people don't think of as comics, like Smile or Mouse or Persepolis,
right? Which
will lead into something that you were going to talk about. And I agree, but what I like about him mentioning is besides mainstream, there's a lot of non-mainstream stuff out there that can be lifted up and turned into, not turned into mainstream, but brought to a bigger audience.
Right.
Because I mean, there's a lot of great comics out there besides Marvel and DC, right?
I mean, there's all the Image, all the independent comics.
Yeah.
More so, not so much comics, but graphic novels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the graphic novel scene has exploded in the past 20 years, right?
And original graphic novels and creator-owned titles have taken off.
Yeah.
So there's almost anything for anyone.
Yeah. And I mentioned this to my good buddy Craig Yo from Yo Books, who does some great books. I don't mind giving him a shout out. And when I mentioned to him, he said made a few suggestions, like talking to local schools, which I did, and public libraries, and talk to them about how you can donate books to them. He said read in public, volunteer to read comics in classrooms, old folks' homes, children's hospitals. You can give out comics for Halloween. And as he said too, his last sentence, I can give Yo books for Christmas.
Like the Marvel pinup book that just came out a couple weeks ago. Beautiful. If anyone's looking for a good stocking stuffer, I'm just saying.
Oh, it is, yeah, exactly. It was wonderful little piece there. So, and we don't mind plugging that because we both loved it, all right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I thought Craig's responses and Ty's were great. It was. I'd like to put the question out there and see how what would get back from people and ideas on how to grow the art form from the artist part, to get out there and start to start to identify. Well, what I do at my things, I identify the people who are really into the comics. Like when I was at the Holy Heart, I'd find those who are really into it, and I'd mention to them about the jam.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it to the whole class several times, but I'd stop and say to certain ones, you should really go to the jam because you got some good chops happening here, and we can help you out. And that's a great thing, because I mean, if they come to a thing and I'm yakking away at someone and Paul's yakking away at someone, then there's all kinds of former students there who also go to the jam there too, who could walk over, and because I've trained them too, they can say, okay, we can help you with this.
Just give a little bit of positive reinforcement, a little bit of professional criticism on how to make your work better, and just get them to grow as an artist, which is all you want them to do, really. Yeah, and be comfortable with their work.
Yeah, and the jam being free, of course, it makes it. That's why we because I mean I teach a class, I do teach a class and all that, but I mean you got to pay for that and all that, and that was great. It's great doing the class and reaching people that way, but we also, and this is one of the things with the jam, we wanted to reach outside of that and make sure that that other people are aren't left behind, right? You know, just because you can't afford the class doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the opportunity, right? Is what we believed, right?
Well, when we did the Pure Comics, it was just a $2 admission fee. Now that was for the vendors, but they had a chance to go up and chat with the artists and buy prints, but you got to interact with them.
Yeah.
When you go up and you interact with a professional artist, it gives them, not it gives them hope, but it kind of it motivates them to be better.
Yeah.
And you see what a professional artist is doing with a published book that has been put out by a major company.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to say to them that, look, you know, Paul here was one of my students, and Mike Fiend, who got an Eisner nomination last year. It's just like, these are some of the people who came through my program. So listen to what we're talking about, because, you know, what I taught Mike and Paul and all the other students, it works, right?
It does.
And if you're really into it and all that, and I've said it to every class, if you're really into it, you know, we're here to help you out. Even, you know, I've even said to them, just come over to the jam if you got a project you're working on. And as soon as I got a free moment, I'll have a look at it and give you a hand, right? And it helps out everyone in the end. You know, basically they become better creators. Makes me feel good. and then of course then they're out creating more new material for the marketplace too, which then of course helps out in terms of the financial, the business side of comics, the comic book store side of it, right?
Which is always what you want to see.
Yeah.
You want to see local talent grow, but you want to see local brick and mortar stores stay alive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
because there are art galleries, right? Is what I think of comic book stores, right?
And where, say Downtown Comics, which is downtown, they got a lot of big tourism, and people come to a comic shop, they look for local books.
I know how many times we've been asked, do you have anything by local artists?
Right.
And nowadays, of course, it's become a lot easier because we say, well, we have this one by Paul Tucker, Ted, or Mike Fiend's Snagglepuss, or whatever, or our upcoming book, or Nobody's in Control for me and Paul, which will be out next week too, by the way. A little plug here, plug from Black Mask. But and well, this kind of does really sort of dovetail into what you were talking about too, in terms of what you had mentioned to me before we went on about the Watchmen.
About the Watchmen, I call it the Watchmen problem.
Yes,
that's what I refer to.
Or the Watchmen effect.
Watchmen effect.
Hey, I like that.
Better. And that comes from it's the comic industry. It's everyone as a whole. They always want to seem like a legitimate form of literature because they're always viewed that they're not.
Yeah.
So when someone comes into the comic shop who's new to the industry, looking to read, most people always recommend the Watchmen.
Yeah.
The problem is they're recommending Watchmen a lot of times to the wrong demographic.
Yes.
And when I was telling you earlier, I went to a comic shop. I was maybe 10 or 11, and it was like back then there was only a handful of graphic novels kicking around.
Really,
just more popular ones. And I was looking for recommendations because you're young, you're buying comics. I was buying Spider-Man and X-Men, and the guy looked at me and he's like, "Well, the most popular one, the best comic ever written, is The Watchmen. This is my favorite." So I picked it up, and so my first impressions are a big thing. I mean, on everything.
Yes.
So my first impression of Watchmen was I read it as a 10-year-old, and it was this boring slog. The Black Freighter stuff I skipped through. I couldn't read it.
Well, and the written pieces at the end of each thing, you wouldn't want to read that as a kid.
You wouldn't want to read it as a kid. And
it's like, this feels like homework.
It did. And I wasn't a fan of Watchmen, and it took me years to reread and appreciate. Because when you understand communism and the doomsday clock, and when you're 10 years old, you want superhero battles.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, I went back to the shop again, and I browsed myself, and I ended up buying Marvel Superhero Secret Wars.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I still got that copy. And I love that, because my little 10-year-old brain wants good versus bad, and a giant fight.
Yeah.
And that's basically what Marvel Superhero Secret Wars was. It was done to basically sell toys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's it's even like when someone comes in the store and says, what should I read?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's what I need something for my kid or whatever. But a lot of times I've had, teenagers and or adults come in, want to know what to read.
Right.
And you're right exactly. I'm not going to give them. I'm not going to give them Batman or Superman or something like that.
No.
If it's an older person, I will go for Watchmen or Mouse or something like that. Now, yeah, I will also still say, oh, you should check out the Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. Even though it's a duck comic, it's so well written that, really it's for all ages and all kinds of people, all right?
The new volume of that come out this week? Was our deluxe hardcover or something?
That was
I saw it at the shop today, actually.
Yeah, there were two volumes, and
Yeah.
they came out as a set.
Okay.
I think it was last week they came out as a set. Beautiful too.
I was looking at the slipcase set there today, actually.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought it up.
Yeah, I love them slipcases,
Yeah.
right? But that's it exactly. Yeah, it's tailoring your recommendations to the person. Exactly like you said, it'd be like recommending Palomar to a 10-year-old kid,
Right.
From Gilbert Hernandez. I mean, sure they might enjoy the nudity and stuff like that, but they're just not going to get it.
They're
right?
not going to. No.
It's like you say, you're just too young for it. You'll be missing jokes, references, and stuff like that. Where when you read it, like you say, 10 years later, and it's just like, oh my God, now it's like as a kid, me watching the Batman TV show and being really mad that, oh, this show is making fun of Batman. I'm very angry at this. And then, of course, when I got older and watched it, it was just like, this stuff is freaking hilarious,
when you understand what camp is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an amazing show to watch.
Yeah, and all the double entendres and all the filthy stuff that, that went over your head as a kid, right?
But you need to know your customer base, and you need to know how to get your new readers in.
Yeah.
And that comes from dialogue and discussions, and if someone comes into a shop or someone's is interested in comics, ask them what brought them to you.
Yeah.
To ask the question.
Yeah.
Was it I don't care if they started with the Walking Dead or a Spider-Man game for PlayStation or whatever that came out, or the X-Men cartoon or something. Yeah. If you start there, then you can guide them in the right way.
Yeah, yeah.
But don't have them come in and be like, oh, I was brought to comics because of the Batman animated series.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, let's read Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you want to go from there, build.
You want to build it
from there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like what I used to say to people with Vertigo. I'd say to them, sure, your son or daughter could buy this Vertigo comic, but they're not going to understand it.
No.
If they were 20 or 23 or whatever, they get it, but it's it has nothing to do. Well, it does with that it's mature readers, but it's the fact that they won't even enjoy it even if they got it.
No.
Right? It just wouldn't do it. Right?
Like, I'll be honest, I never read Sandman until I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
Because the book I know wasn't for me.
No.
Now, when I hit late teens and 20s, Preacher was right up my alley. Because Preacher was full of adventure, but it had adult themes, but it had violence and humor, and I understood that.
Yeah.
And I loved that book, and it probably one of my favorite Vertigo series.
Still a classic, isn't it?
But that was the right time frame for reading it. If I picked that up as a 12, 13-year-old kid, I wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean years, it's your mind frame. So someone you might be a mature 13 and understand and get it, you might not be comfortable reading it until you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
But that's where you have to understand your client. I call it your clientele.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily just for comic book shops.
No.
But it's hard to recommend stuff.
Yeah.
And I got a friend of mine who's just getting into comics, and he's loving everything, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I was reading this, and I'm enjoying this, and someone recommended Daredevil, and Daredevil's a seamless thing. And I was like, you can start off with Kevin Smith's run, and then go to Bendis' run
Yeah.
and then go to Brubaker's run.
Yeah. And even
It's
go back
perfect.
to Miller's.
And you can go back to Miller.
Yeah.
But you can pick up all that, and he's interested in Daredevil, so now you can recommend stuff.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times I'd ask him, what's your favorite TV show? Tell me some of the movies you like.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. What kind of genres are you into? So, I mean, if they're a crime noir fan, oh, look at this Brubaker stuff. And sure enough, they'll gobble it up, right?
They will, yeah.
Or, you like the American Horror Story or that sort of thing. Well, you should read Harrow County or something like that.
Something like that, or Lock and Key if you're looking for something
Yeah.
a bit more cop.
And to be quite honest, working at a comic book store, that's actually, I always found that to be the fun sort of thing to see if, I wonder if I can nail something that they will actually really, really like.
When they come in and be like, that book was phenomenal, what else do you have?
Yeah.
And then you can go into like your own collection. It's like, well, I like this, and then this brought me to this.
Yeah.
And that's how you build a base.
Yeah.
And so get someone to build their collection.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they'll come back to you and like, that book fucking sucked.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you're like, well, sorry. Everyone has different tastes.
Yeah, and they'll swear at you and stuff like that, right? But like I say, they will still come back to you every so often. And if you get it right, then they start to listen to you too. And then obviously they start to find their own way because I like this writer or I like this artist. Do you got anything more by these guys or what's the best X-Men book to lead up to this series? And
we had a discussion with someone about X-Men. X-Men is an impossible series to just jump into.
Oh yeah, you got to know.
But they watched or knew about the 90s cartoon. And I was like, you can get it on Disney Plus. I said, the good thing about the X-Men cartoon is the 90s roster. But it involves every major story arc possible.
Yeah.
So I was like, watch the episodes. Do you like the Wolverine backstory? Go read Weapon X.
Yeah.
Do you like the Proteus Saga? Go read the Proteus Saga.
Yeah.
You can go into Days of Future Past. They're not quite the same, so it still feels fresh to them.
Yeah.
But you watch a 22-minute episode, and you get a feel, and you know what you like.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I liked this Alpha Flight issue. Well, then you can go seamlessly into Alpha Flight.
But I hated that Morph guy.
I hated that. I like the Morph guy. Morph was great. Morph was Changeling. If you like Morph, go to Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Do that. And Age of Apocalypse has an episode. I found that interesting, and I guided him towards the animated series.
Okay,
because they had little snippets, and then I said, figure out what you like, go from there.
Okay.
So that was unique. And that's the good thing I like about the mass media. You can watch the cartoons. They can say, oh, I like the video game. I liked where Spider-Man fought the Kingpin.
Yeah.
And then you can guide them to Kingpin stories. And then you can branch off into Daredevil and then go from there.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah, and different villains. Oh, you like the Kingpin, then here, try the early appearances here in the Miller stuff or the Sienkiewicz Miller stuff. And
you can go from there. And that's what I like now about the mass media. People get into comic books through different ways now. It's not just through comic books.
Yeah, I've had a few. One guy came in. He was, I've been watching the Marvel movies and all that, and I decided I should try out some of the comics.
Yep. And
he was an older guy, so I went with some of the older stuff though. Well, I asked him which movies he liked the best, and then said, okay, for that, then try this and that.
Try this.
The Infinity Gauntlet. Right? Hey, here you go.
The only thing I think like Marvel and DC needs to get away from is they're so dependent on, they try and please new readers.
Yeah.
And it's the thing I hate the most. And something will come out, a new movie or a series, and they'll completely revamp the current comic.
Yeah, to
in case
feature
a new reader comes in and like, oh, I recognize that, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, they've lost all the other diehard fans
them.
And to me, it's a lot better to stick with the comics because the comics are the origin of the movies in the first place. So it's just like, don't go changing if anything, they should be changing the movies to, because I mean, the stories work. Because otherwise, why would they be so popular? Right. So why not try sticking, it's like I'll never forgive Marvel for the Fantastic Four, for the Galactus in the Silver Surfer movie. It was absolutely ridiculous. It sucked. It sucked so hard I can still hear it sucking today, right? I was in New York at the time, and it was at the comic convention, and they had all the posters up that year of Rise of the Silver Surfer and all that. And I went to I was at the Marvel table looking at it and all that, and looking at all the pictures, and I noticed no Galactus, and I said to him, so any pictures of Galactus or anything like that or whatever? He said, oh, well, you'll have to wait for the movie to see it. I said, I'll tell you one thing. If you don't have Galactus in this thing, I'm not watching the goddamn movie. And I said, not only that, you're going to just make your fans angrier and angrier. And it was ridiculous because it was such a... Some of these stories are just, you're given it on a fucking silver platter, and they screw the pooch somehow, right?
One thing I hated really quick, my favorite Silver Age character and comic book was Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
And they put out a story, Battle Scars, I think, in which a character debuted, lost an eye, put on an eye patch, was later revealed to be Nick Fury's son, then shaved his head, called himself Nick Fury Jr., and then now everyone just calls him Nick Fury, and he's Nick Fury, because they wanted to get the Sam Jackson Nick Fury into the main Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Even though he debuted in the Marvel Universe, or the Marvel Ultimates, and they could just brought him in through that.
Yeah.
But instead they made a new character, a half-assed story to get
it's
a character like that in, and then they basically made the original Nick Fury, the Watcher, and then shoved him up on the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, but where's my Steranko Nick Fury?
Exactly. You're basically cutting some of the older readers adrift when you do stuff like that, and it's not about changing characters or race or anything like that. It's just you're messing with stories that are good. Sure, you can change characters here and there and all that, but when you start changing the basis of the stories and stuff like that, you're fighting a losing battle, I think. Right?
If it had to be like Sam Jackson Ultimates Nick Fury, and he come through, and the other Nick Fury died, and he took over, or he had two of them, that'll be fine. But it was this son of Nick Fury, and he changed his name to Nick Fury Jr., but everyone just suddenly calls him Nick Fury and ignores the other Nick Fury, and I was like, this is just a bad story.
Yeah, this is just a bad idea.
And that's it. If it's good, you don't care.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you want good stories.
Yeah.
You're not going to pass on crap.
No, not at all. So,
that kind of includes our rant, too.
Yeah. Well, for deep thoughts, I was actually going to mention variants, because I've been listening to a lot of people complaining recently about variants, and it's just like, come on, folks, it's, you've had your bit of fun and all that, but how about just settle more down to, instead of getting people to buy 10 of one comic and all that, just do one cover and let them start to explore and buy some other comics.
Yeah.
Instead of getting people to buy 2 or 3 of one comic and wasting their money there, get them buying 3 different comics. Well, that's what I don't like about variants. Is it tightens up the market and it screws. It puts the fucking bolts to some of the newer titles and stuff like that.
That's what killed the comic industry in the 90s.
Yeah.
It inflates numbers. It's like, oh, we sold 750,000 copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if everyone's buying 3 covers each, you're selling a third of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're publishing 700. Then when you stop the variants, and issue 9 or 10 comes out, you publish 750,000 copies. Then you're going to be stuck with 500,000 copies. Yeah. And then your company goes under.
Yeah, and you're strangling the imagination. It's just like, come on. And I think it's done. It's just like, because I know people are starting to get more and more pissed off, and I think his day is really coming to an end.